Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. This time, battle lines. Yeah, DS9 battle lines. Not the battle lines that we often draw on the show, the hosts between us, about holodecks and which series is better and all that kind of stuff. And what's a spoiler and what's not a spoiler. No, this is battle lines, DS9 Star Trek. This is a battle I wage with you all the time. We wage with you all the time. It's not really a battle. It's a battle of love. Come support us, patreon.com/IABD. Get all kinds of benefits for it doesn't take much to get in that winner's circle with us and the rest of the IABDpresents.com network. Get in on it. Check it out. IABD Presents. Well, you can check out IABDpresents.com. Go to patreon.com/IABD. In the meantime, this is Battle Lines on It's All Been Tricked Before.
Welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. Your regular hosts are here with me.
This is Steven.
And Keith, in a good spot.
Jimmy-Jerome, and one of us may end up dying and coming back to life in the middle of this podcast and then not be able to leave the planet we're stuck on. Because, of course, we're talking about the Deep Space Nine episode, Battle Lines. First impressions.
It seemed like a pastiche of a lot of themes or episodes we've seen before, which doesn't necessarily didn't necessarily make it uninteresting or bad to me. Okay. Maybe a little bit above okay, but yeah, that's my entire first impression.
Nice.
Yeah.
I liked the way that it began in the sense of it seemed like it was giving the kind of portent. First the gag with Kira and the portent of the religious leader showing up.
Kayapaka?
Yes. And giving those kinds of mystical omens and so forth. And, the
prophecy.
Yeah. The prophetical suggestions of the intentional injection of intrigue, which is, formulaic and could be a little irritating in certain ways, I admit, but I don't know. I kind of like they use it sparingly. I mean, they use it sparingly throughout the series itself so far. So if they go a little bit too heavy in the episode, then the
episode itself was fine. It was a very run-of-the-mill Star Trek episode, in my opinion. What makes sense for early Deep Space Nine before they really differentiate themselves from Next Gen? This could easily have been a Next Gen episode.
Yeah,
the Kayapaka stuff was surprising to me. It was one of their first stabs at continuity. I feel like as we start to see some serial elements creep into Deep Space Nine, that we have this religious leader of this whole planet, and now all of a sudden her circumstances have changed, which is going to have major ramifications and impact back on Bajor, which will definitely play out in our story, because she's the leader of a planet. But I also feel like they didn't really follow up on this ever again, and that's disappointing because it's like that they should be followed up on. We should go back and visit Kayapaka at some point, and it's disappointing to me that this is like we will see Kayapaka twice more in the series, but it's not this version that stayed on the planet. It's a different circumstance. I won't tell you about it. Same actress, same character, but different. So it's disappointing to me that this wasn't really followed up upon, and I always felt it should have been. But that's looking back in retrospect. Taking it for the time it was, I think I would have been really surprised that they took the bold step of taking this character that was certainly set up to be a major reoccurring player and taking her off the board so early in such an interesting way.
Well,
so
that's pretty much it. I think
I give him credit for that.
That's the episode. No,
and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I was surprised when she died, but then I immediately thought she's coming back. She's not dead. Then I was like, oh wait, yeah, because I wrote what when she showed up, and I was like, nope. I felt like I knew she was going to come back, and then I knew there were going to be strings attached to whatever saved her, and I'm glad it wasn't some alien. Well, kind of. The micros were kind of running her body, but not her brain or any of that stuff. So that element was interesting. And that was also, I guess that's Keith's love for Metamorphosis. Because remember...
yes, Cloud Headford.
Cloud Headford, yeah. He couldn't leave there.
I forgot about that. Yeah. I told you, original DS9's the closest to the original series of any of the spin-offs.
Yeah, well, there you go. And like I said, I thought there were elements that echoed TOS and probably for sure TNG too, including the Kai fashion. She looked very much like she could have been from Friday's Child from the original series. But I say that in a good way. I liked her getup. I thought she looked. I liked her a lot. I liked her look a lot.
I like the character of Kaya Paka. And that's kind of my problem with losing her so early in the series and only her second episode. We talked about her last time, played by Camille Saviola. So whenever I think back at DS9, she has a larger presence to me than 2 episodes. Like I said, we'll see her again, but it's not this, but she, not a lot again. And she just has such a presence because in the mythology of things, she really led her planet to fight for its freedom and overthrow the dictators. And on a personal level, this was a really good ending for her because her purpose on Bajor was over and now she gets to fulfill a new purpose.
Yeah.
But also, it's really regrettable and sad because she deserves some rest now that her purpose is over and she doesn't get her rest. And you can easily imagine decades of work ahead of her. And that's so sad in a way. Not to mention, they can't just go back to Bajor and tell them the truth. They have to give them a version of the truth.
Yeah, that was, and I appreciated that problematic aspect of it.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a, senior citizen angle there that she thought she didn't have a purpose anymore. She was retired and now she has a new purpose. And that's, whatever. She said something going on with it. If prophecy is fulfilled, this is what was waiting for or whatever. So. But I liked her character a lot. I thought she had some really great moments. And the way that Kira looks at her with such reverence was actually very touching. I mean, her reaction when she died, I thought it gives that scene what it needs. Even though, like I said, I knew she was coming back. I was upset seeing Kira lose it like that.
Well, it was a really good development to Kira's character. And just talking, I mean, they took the time, and this I really appreciate it. We're getting way ahead, but they took the time to give Kira a scene where she talked about what Opaka meant to her, that it wasn't just a spiritual leader or a mentor or something. She was the symbol of hope for a whole planet that was fighting, and it's all Kira ever knew. And that whole revelation of Kira doesn't want to be violent, but Opaka reads her paw, and the violence is part of her because it's all she's known. I just loved that they took that moment of character development for Kira.
Yeah.
And again, once more, I underappreciated Kira the first time around. God, she steals the show. She is every bit as impressive to me as Avery Brooks.
Yeah, I'm enjoying her. I mean, I thought I would, and I am. So.
Yeah, and I can tell you there's only good stuff Kira gets so much more rich stuff to work with. My favorite episode of season 1 is Kira-centric, and we haven't got to it yet.
Oh, okay.
I would put this particular episode of season 1 up against later seasons. It's a really fantastic episode it's called Duet. It's one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek total. It's really good. So hopefully I didn't oversell it, but it's coming up we'll get to it soon enough.
They call her the Kai, and all I could think of was George Takei. I wonder if that was a shout out.
I don't think it was, but that would be wonderful. So the Kai is like the Pope, but also for the whole planet. But the Vedics are like the bishops or whatever that are underneath her.
Okay.
And it got me excited because we'll get the first real political storyline DS9 of the Vedics vying and maneuvering to try to replace her. Who's going to be the next Kai? And that's a fun storyline. And we get to bring Louise Fletcher in as a reoccurring character for that plot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and she sticks around forever. So, and Kira's, of course, involved in that plot. So I'm just looking forward to getting into that. Cool. Even though I'm going to miss Kaya Paka. Wonderful.
Yeah. Forward.
I was going to say jump back to the beginning because we haven't actually got started yet.
Sorry, moving forward with the beginning.
Well, speaking of which, then, and speaking of Kira, I love the comedy bit they did at the beginning. Her reading her files, like, well, what could they possibly say is going to bother me?
Oh, yeah.
That thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's Ducat's files. Did they mention Ducat by name?
I don't remember.
I don't think they did. I think Cisco just said, the previous commander of the station or whatever, which I'm not sure we fully established in the canon yet as Gul Dukat, who we met in the pilot, but haven't seen again yet. But he's such a major reoccurring character. And because I know what his and Kira's dynamic is later that they really develop, it really tickled me. That whole opening scene of, oh my God, I actually felt like I was dropped into the middle of the episode of them going over those. I'm like, is this the beginning? I even pulled up Netflix because I wasn't watching on the disc. I pulled up the streaming Paramount to see, is this the beginning? And then just coming out and Kira. And as soon as Kira said I could handle it, you knew she was going to come out upset. You knew it was coming.
Yeah. It was pretty great, but it was it's set up. It was great.
But what you didn't get set up was then Sisko's going to immediately disarm her with we're going to see the Kai. And so that was such a good, well thought out, well developed 1-2 punch of story. Like, we've set this up to get her angry, but we've got this thing that's going to immediately resolve it so we can move on. So good. I really appreciated how excited Sisko seemed to get to see Kayapaka again.
Yeah.
Because she really made a difference in that one meeting they had to him. I think there's not enough made of it early on. And I'm sure you remember the pilot of just how lost Sisko is as a character before Kai Opaka gives him meaning. And I know it's not super spelled out explicitly, but Sisko's reaction to her being there to me is everything you need to know about he was lost and she helped him find his way back. Like, so meaningful. And of course, Kira's just stunned and floored because you get the impression Kira actually really hasn't had contact with the Kai. Like, she's a lower level, and for her to get that kind of personal attention is big. But she handles it well. She doesn't get starstruck. And I appreciate that choice as well. Opaka clearly did her homework on the crew before she showed up. The whole you've got a daughter to O'Brien and everything. It could be that she's got some psychic powers, and I think that's what they want us to think.
Right.
But to me, it was like, no, she just did her research. I just tend to think all spiritual people are, I don't want to say not genuine, because I think she's definitely genuine in her belief in the prophets. But there's a certain amount of showmanship to what they do. And her doing her research is good showmanship.
I thought they gave her some moments where she, because actually it says when they're in the runabout, and I've got to comment on that. I'll come back to that. But she says some mumbo jumbo, and Sisko says, I don't understand Opaka. And I was like, neither do I. What are you talking about? She follows that up with, she wants, when they're like, well, we're not going to go do that. And she's like, well, is it because you're worried about me getting hurt? He's like, well, and she's like, I don't get out a lot, which I thought very humanized isn't the right word, but brought her down, made her feel more, not this big figure, but more of a regular, I guess, a regular person. Yeah.
I think that's why she's such a good and respected Kai, though, is because she has that quality to her of, I'm not better than you. I'm just a regular person. But she also has that quality of, it's a shame we can't see the wormhole because it only opens when a ship goes through. No ships are scheduled to go through today. And she says nothing. She just lets it hang there until Sisko and Kira are like, oh, but we'll show you. We'll take you in. Which is the right reaction for them to have. But it's that power of her not pushing it. But she deserves the respect. So
what she
they say she's never, it's not that she doesn't travel. She's never left Bajor before.
Right.
And I have to wonder if part of that's because they've been occupied by an alien force for decades. Right. But part of it could just be the Kai doesn't leave. She's spiritual leader of the people. She needs to be with the people.
What a ripoff. She gets stuck on a prison planet. I'm sorry.
Going back to what Stephen was saying earlier about the mysterious comments, it seemed pretty heavy-handed. Everything she would say would seem like, well, I'm going to die at some point. Or, that might not be my fate. I'm not going to make it to whatever. And so
here's what she said that Sisko responded the way I would have. She said, prophecy can often be vague, Commander. That's why we must test it. And I was like, what the hell does that mean?
Well, because she hadn't revealed the prophecy yet that she wasn't going to come back.
Did she say
and I did appreciate that. That was more hinted rather than later.
Did she say faith or fake?
Vague.
Oh, vague.
Vague. Yeah.
Yeah, if she had come out and said from the beginning, I'm not going to return, that would be heavy-handed to me. I think the way that she just says, oh, prophecy's vague, I didn't think that was too heavy-handed, but I also wrote, she's acting even weirder than normal, so you knew something was up.
I mean, I think prophecies are vague. That way anybody can interpret it any way they want, which we're all very familiar with here on planet Earth.
What wasn't it? What was it in response to? What did Sisko say before that?
It was like when they were going through the wormhole. I don't think there was really anything it was a response to. I think it was more just... Yeah.
Kira says, shall reverse course, and Opaka says, so soon. Sisko says, there's not much else to show you yet. And then she says,
there's 5 balls.
Commander, that's why we must test it. So...
Yeah, to me, obviously, I have very little respect for religion on the planet Earth, and don't put any credence into prophecy. But for this story, their religion is real. The prophets are real. We've seen them. You may just call them wormhole aliens, as Starfleet does, but Bajoran religion actually has scientific backing. It's not some unseen gods. We've seen them. So I think that helps me accept that religion in terms of the story. I will say I loved before they went through the wormhole, Cisco trying to blow off Bashir and Bashir not taking the hint.
Yes.
Like, I didn't want to interrupt your duties. Nope, it's slow day. I can go.
Yep, that was great.
Oh, but see, that's kind of my alternate episode. Bashir is so freaking annoying. I kind of wish it was him that got stuck on the planet instead of Opaka. Don't get me wrong, there's some good Bashir stories later. But at this point, and there was a moment in this episode where Bashir is really putting on his doctor's hat and insisting on doing his duty.
Yeah.
Where I had respect for him.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
Screw you, I don't care about danger. Yeah. I'm doing what I'm here to do. But those moments are so rare for him in this first season so far. He's so awful. I guess I forgot just how awful he was right in these early seasons.
Yeah.
I'm very anxious for him to get developed so we can stop this crap. That's my alternate episode is he got left behind instead of Kai. So they talk about this is science continuity. Cisco mentions earlier that where the wormhole leads in the Gamma Quadrant is 70,000 light years away.
Yeah.
And it would take their best starship 67 point some years to travel that distance. Very analogous to Voyager, which gets tossed 70,000 years, and it's going to take them 70 years to get home. So that would mean that 1,000 light years takes 1 year to travel, their fastest starship, right? They get through the wormhole, and they see that signal they want to go investigate, and they said it's 3.5 light years away. So I did some math to figure out, and you should be able to travel about 2 5/7 light year per day, which means when he says it's 3.5 light years a day, they're going to be flying for 30 some hours to get to it.
Oh, wow.
So they're going to have to sleep and have an overnight in the runabout to get to this distress signal, which is not how it's portrayed in the episode at all. I mean, it's like every TV show. Right. Justified springs to mind. I lived in Kentucky when Justified started airing with Timothy Olyphant, and he was constantly traveling back and forth from Lexington to his Harlan, Kentucky. Oh, right. And it's like 3.5 hours in the car. And he was constantly like middle of the day there and back. Yeah. And it was like, dude, that's your whole day. It's the same thing here. Like, just be careful with your light years. If you're going to establish 1,000 light years takes a year, you should say it's 0.3 light years away, not 3.5 light years away.
You could have done without one of the numbers.
If I could figure that out in 2 seconds on a calculator, it's a break in continuity, in my opinion.
Speaking of ships taking off and landing, so at the very beginning of the episode, they take off in the runabout. We get to see the runabout lift off and take off, and it just made me think of, especially in the prequels, how much the Star Wars Minute guys talk about how much Lucas likes to show ships landing and ships taking off, and I thought, that's part of why we're here, I think, or at least I know for me, it's part of why we're here for these sci-fi shows. It's because to see cool spaceships move and do things. And, just to touch on the beginning of the show, we spend the first 2.5 minutes just looking at a space station, slowly zoom around. So, but I did, but then it happened. I'm like, did we need this shot? And then I was like, yeah, we did. I want to see the runabout take off. So I liked it. Also,
we've gotten very few glimpses of the runabout so far. So we need more of it at this point. It's basically a bigger shuttle.
Yeah. And we get to see them in the opening also, which I always forget they're coming.
There are additional rooms besides the cockpit in the runabout, so you can go to a bed and get us some sleep.
Yeah. And it was called the Yangtze.
They're all named after rivers. The Rio Grande and the Yangtze, and I can't remember the third one is because I think there's only 3 runabouts on DS9. They crash land. That seemed unexpected to me. I guess I forgot that was the episode.
Well, but most crash landings are unexpected.
You're right. Kira's grief at Opaka's death was affecting. Man, it was affecting, and now the Visitor was killing it. Yeah. The whole middle of the Civil War thing, they give me the story about these are prisoners, it's a prison colony. They're never really clear about what their crimes are and whether we should feel bad for them or not. But I think the point it tries to make, and I agree with this, is there are punishments too harsh for any crime. And being forced to live in these conditions and die over and over again is too harsh for any crime. We're supposed to feel bad for them, just like we should feel bad for many of the people trapped in our own prison system.
Yep.
Opaka being alive, did that moment didn't shock you, Stephen, because you expected it?
Yeah, I like I said, I did write down what, but I mean, I was also very hopeful that she was still alive because, like we said, I liked her character a lot. And then I was like, nah, I should have expected this. But then I expected, well, and we do find out there are strings attached. But I thought her mind was going to be taken over by aliens. So I'm glad it was not that trope. And it was a different thing. More of the merged Headford thing. So, which much more preferable.
My biggest problem with that moment is then we see the Starfleet crew just huddled around. Well, that's just Starfleet because Kira and Apocalypse.
Right.
But we see them just huddled around and Bashir's doing all these scans and analysis on her.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, there's all these people injured from battle.
Right.
And she seems fine. Why are you spending all this time on her instead of all those other people? That's when Bashir is not doing his job. If we'd known why that they're not worried about the injuries, that would have made more sense. But then if we'd known why, then it would have been a surprise when she came out. So it's the double-edged sword of the story.
Well, and the leader, Shella or whatever, he'd already said, "Hey, we've got our sick here. Can you help them?" Shayla, yeah. Even before that, I thought.
Well, yeah, he had said that, Shayla, yeah, you're right. He had said that they don't have doctors, which they all thought was strange. This is the explanation for why they don't have doctors. But he does seem to welcome Bashir's help, which feels a little strange because it's like, you don't need him, so why do you welcome his help? You don't want to be prolonged. You just want to die so you can get it over with and move on. But at the same time, Shayla definitely is curious about the mystery of what's happening to them, and that we should all be curious about, and he wants to break the cycle. Shayla, I should mention, is played by the great Jonathan Banks, best known for Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, also in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai in the 8th Dimension, the 1984 version,
and
Mudbound. He has 179 credits.
That's it.
Wife guy. Yeah.
Very distinctive personality and voice to the point where it doesn't matter how much alien loaf you're going to put on him, we know who it is.
Same.
But also his acting seems rather limited, which I feel bad about saying because he does show range in Breaking Bad and stuff.
Range within the scope of the character itself. But I mean, there's certain people play certain kinds of people for a reason, I guess. And he's good at doing that. And I love him in doing that. So I don't know. Can't really complain too much.
I agree. And I'm glad they got him before he'd already had quite a career before this. But I wouldn't say he blew up until well after this. So I'm glad they got him before he blew up.
Yeah, and when I Wikipedia'd him, I remember him being on the show Wise Guy, which was late 80s, early 90s. It was a different take on mob stuff, but not that I saw a lot of it, but I know it was very well regarded back then.
I did notice on IMDb, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, because sometimes when you go down into like the uncredited, they're not accurate, but Tracy Coco is listed as an Antiquan in this episode, and she, of course, appears as Engine J and all those episodes of Next Gen that we barely, like, she never maybe has a line, but she's usually just background, but she's in 62 episodes of Next Generation. She's the short-haired officer that's sometimes around on the bridge and stuff. So I know that's fun. They let her come play an alien for an episode of DS9. She actually does that in 6 episodes of DS9. This is the first one of the 6, though. We probably won't track her. Just say. And she does it for 6 episodes of Voyager as well. But I just noticed the name, and I was like, oh, that's cool. The other guest star of note, Zlonko, who was, I guess, the leader of the other side of the war, was played by Paul Collins. He looked familiar, and he does have 112 credits. Best known as playing John Darling in the 1953 Peter Pan with Mary Margaret. Also in the movie Dave, Instinct, and Triple X State of the Union. He looked familiar, but I can't say, it's mostly guest spots on his roster, and I don't know where I have seen him. He's British. So, anyway.
Yeah.
O'Brien and Dax come to look for them. No security officers?
No, why would you do that?
Okay, just checking. Let's take our other 2 main characters that are Starfleet and send them out, because we need all 4 Starfleet main characters in peril. And we'll leave Odo, who's not in Starfleet, in charge of the station, I guess. And Quark's probably back in Ops. We didn't see it, but he's up on Ops with Odo. O'Brien says he's going to use a differentiated magnetor, and Dax is like, I never heard of that. O'Brien's like, I'm inventing it. I appreciated that. That's a total Scotty moment there.
Magnetometer, I think it was.
Yeah. But just the whole thing of like, yeah, no, you haven't heard of it because I haven't invented it yet, but give me 5 more minutes.
I wrote down during that Scotty O'Brien. I know we've talked about he's variation on Scotty in a way, but I enjoyed that very much.
The one warlord character, it might have been Jonathan Banks, says, when you cease to fear death, the rules of war change. I felt like that was actually quite profound and worth like actually spending some time alone thinking about it after the episode was over, you know? What's the cost? We've all had plenty of people say, like, in the era of drones and stuff, if you're not putting yourself on the line, if you're not having that personal stake, what's the cost to you? And here they're miserable, but they still don't see it, their life as the cost, you know? They're not protective of their life.
Yeah, well, I know we don't like to get political on this show, but yeah, you know, we just finished, a 17, 18-year war in Afghanistan, but that's a thing going on over there that wasn't really affecting us here for the most part, and that's problematic, obviously.
Bashir can fix the shuttle's computer?
Yeah, I thought that was something.
He's a doctor.
He's
not a computer technician.
He can do it all.
Given what we're going to learn about Bashir, it gels, and maybe what we eventually learn about Bashir is they were looking at these past episodes and trying to figure out how to explain them in the continuity and then build that into the character. I mean, what we find out later, and I don't think this is a big spoiler, he's a super genius, like super genius, one of the smartest men alive. And it's not limited to just medical stuff. So that's...
They kind of hinted at it at the beginning, but not to that extent, certainly.
Right. They basically made him seem like he's a medical genius, but this is the first time I think we see his genius extending beyond his profession. And so that to me is interesting. Like, did they have that pre-planned, or was that backpedaling later to make it make sense? Like, or not necessarily backpedaling, but being like, hey, I got this cool idea that would fix that continuity error or that continuity question. So let's just build it in. And he's so humble about it too.
He's such a genius, but yet he couldn't save Takei when she was
very badly injured.
Yeah, and I wrote,
she was already dead. She wasn't just injured; she was already dead.
And I already knew that. Well, yeah, I guess at that point it's hard to say. But that is also when I was like, well,
only kind of
coming back. But you know, I thought maybe she was still with us, and he just couldn't figure it out. Oh, when they go back to the before Dax and O'Brien go out, I always love random shots, and I feel like we're going to get even more of them in DS9. But when they're going down the elevator, it cuts to the shot of them looking up at, I think it was Odo, and it closing. I thought that was just a nice little.
That's thing. A cool shot, yeah.
Hats off to the director for throwing a little.
Director different. Paul Lynch, one of our regulars.
Yes, yeah. So. Kudos.
He knows what he's doing. He's comfortable on the set.
Yeah.
One of our next gen regulars, I should say, that's moved over to the end.
Okay.
Yeah. I know I kind of already touched on this, but when Opaka reads Kira's paw, I did see online today on Facebook, somebody posted, in Deep Space Nine, how come everybody's paw is strong? Does nobody have a weak paw in Deep Space Nine? But the whole thing about violence and her having to accept that side of her, I know it's not novel or original or whatever, but I still appreciated that scene for what that does for her character and trying to accept that side of herself so she can move on. Because Kira is an interesting character to me because we know how hardened she is, but she also shows so much compassion for others. And she can be tough as nails, but she is not emotionless. She is not robotic. Yes. And that is an interesting dichotomy to have. I feel like it's a very complex female character that we didn't get a lot of on TV at this era, and we get more of now. Maybe still not as much as we'd like. Yeah. And so just seeing the way they've written Kira really impresses me.
Milder episode, it'd be a planet where the people are kind of stuck there, and like some of them will have, half their body is black and half their body is white, and the other side half their body's white and half their body's black, and they're stuck there constantly fighting each other forever and forever for years. And
that occurred to me as well. I wonder if Battle Lines was purposely meant to let that be your last battlefield.
It was right there.
I would not be surprised if they put Battle in the title just for that, because Battle Lines seems kind of a stretch. Kind of a vague.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, they really pay homage to the original series in DS9.
And I appreciate that.
Cisco smacks down Bashir's Prime Directive question.
Yeah.
I love that, but it's also like, we're just not going to deal with that. So, but it's also part of Cisco's character of like, I'm not concerned with that. I don't care. That doesn't matter to me right now.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Neither side will back down for the war. That's when that episode of TOS really locked in for me, was the fact that they both they came to the meeting, but all they wanted to hear what was going on, but they really neither were serious about a ceasefire. They just wanted to hear what was going on. Yeah. Something novel. Bashir says to Sisko, "We can't afford to die here, not even once," as they like duck behind.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was kind of like if you thought they could just die, that was a oh crap moment as they're being attacked.
Yeah.
Because I could see a lot of fans for the first time not being all that worried as they're being attacked because of that, even though also plot armor because they're main characters.
But it made for a nice moment. And again, Bashir saves the day like he always does. So
I really liked that Kaya Paka chose to stay before she learned she had to stay.
Yes.
She makes that decision to stay and help those people before she knows about the biometrics.
Yeah.
And the limitation. That was a really important plot point to me. And her character developed, like I said, 2 episodes, they developed that character so well. Mm-hmm. I feel like you really know Kaya Paka, and she could have done 15 more episodes. I really wish she had.
And the actress whose name is escaping me.
Oh, good. Camille Saviano? Saviola.
She carries it with such gravitas that, and this isn't a knock on her looks or anything, but in my mind, she's like...
And how short she is.
Yeah. In my mind, she's older and whatever, but she was only like maybe early mid-40s here.
Well, she was the lead singer of a female rock band in the 1970s in New York City. Yeah. So she's got plenty of confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mid-40s is pretty old.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like I said, she's no longer with us. She died last year. Well, as you hear this podcast, 2 years ago. But where we sit right now, October 2021. And she was only 71, believe it or not.
And last week's guest star, I meant to mention this, Norman Lloyd, he passed in 2021, age of 107 years old. So
whoa.
Yeah. So coincidentally, that's how long I'll have to live to get to all the episodes on here of Lower Decks. Yeah.
Or as Jimmy says, only 107.
Hey, if Star Trek does not keep putting out at the rate they are now, we got another 15 years, maybe 20 tops. Yeah. But I do expect them to keep putting out. You know, I used to laugh.
Or they'll have to get out. Sorry.
I used to laugh when you talked about not surviving to the end of this podcast, but at the rate they're going now, none of us are going to survive to the end of the... We will be able to do this till our dying breath. That's right. And then we'll just have to decide when the first one of us dies if we end it or the other two keep going or whatever.
Well, I guess that's the reason why you had children. I mean, that's the only reason I can think of.
Well, I mean, Zoe does really like Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh, that's good.
We might have to bring her as a co-host when we get there.
That's cool.
Yeah, we watched that together.
That's she can call the show Star Trek Progeny.
Actually, I want her to watch Voyager, and I'm hoping she'll sit down when we get to Voyager in a couple of years because she loves Janeway so much on Prodigy. I want her to see live action Janeway and see what she thinks. We've talked a lot about the story development and here, so we need to talk about who wrote this. Story by is Hilary Bader, who did story by for The Lost and Hero Worship on Next Gen, and then we'll write an episode we haven't seen yet for Next Gen called Dark Page. She also has 4 story by credits for DS9 and 1 for Voyager, but only that 1 written by. They're all story by. So I guess she sold a lot of pitches, but it looks like Star Trek Klingon, Star Trek Borg, the video game. She finally got a written by credit. Writer for Batman Beyond and Superman the Animated Series. So that's her. But then the teleplay is by Richard Danis and Evan Summers. I wasn't familiar with them, but Richard Danis is best known for writing for Next Gen and DS9. And it looks like all of his Next Gen episodes are over. He was an executive story editor that just had 2 teleplay, 1 teleplay and 1 one written by Deja Q and Booby Trap. I'll call both of those forgettable, so I'm kind of surprised they let him write this. He does have a story by credit for an episode of DS9 I rather like coming up, but that's it. Just 1 more credit there. The other guy, Evan Summers, only has 6 writing credits on IMDb. He's got 3. Well, this is his only... He has a story by and teleplay by for another episode that I do like on DS9, and then another story by for DS9, and the 1 story by for Voyager. So these are both people that have been around the fringes of Trek, but not like primary Trek people. Oh, the Warriors are very interested in Bashir solving their problems so that they can die. Yeah. But their reason is so that they can wipe out the other side.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Bashir drew the moral line in the sand of, no, that I'm not going to fix you. But that whole thing where, like, they're beaming away. He's like, wait, you haven't told me. You haven't fixed it. And he's like, yep. But I appreciated that. I feel like Picard would have made him save them anyway. But Sisko's the commander who's just like, nah, you guys don't deserve it. We're outies.
I will say that was another twist that I didn't actually see. I mean, I wasn't surprised that they wanted to still kill each other. Well, no, I guess I was a little bit. I thought it was going to be. My head was even going through all the logistics of, well, how are they going to get them all out of there? And not thinking like, well, that's never going to happen. But so, yeah, that one I did not see coming, but which is good. That's good.
Sisko starts to say goodbye to Kayapaka after he orders them to be beamed up. He can be beamed up any second, and then he starts saying goodbye. That seems a problem, doesn't it? And my last note is Opaka says she'll see Sisko again. As I said, she doesn't, but it's fuzzy. Like, maybe if she eventually dies and goes to the afterlife of the prophets, that's what she means. She'll see him again. Yeah. But no, he doesn't ever return to that planet, which is also confusing to me because that planet's really close to the wormhole. You'd think they'd go back and check in on her. Well,
it's kind of like Kirk and Khan and Picard and a bunch of other...
But Sisko has to fly past her planet, like, all the time. Right. You think, like, somebody's like, Akira's, shall we stop and check on the Kai? We're busy. We'll get her next time. Yeah. We just don't have time for her. We got a war we're worried about. She's her wars, whatever. So, yeah, our rest in peace, R.I.P. Kayapaka. Get to the rankings. Who was the shady character this week?
I kind of bent the meaning of shady. Okay. The Kai is mine. Just because the stuff she says, it's like, what are you getting at? Again, I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm calling her straight up shady. She made them ferry her to her death, and she did not include them in. Which, you can very easily have a lot of Major upset at Sisko when he comes home for getting their Kai killed. But the one time she left the planet, finally, it's like, that you're afraid to fly. As the plane goes down, you think, isn't it ironic?
Don't you think?
Keith, who's shady?
Well, it's a little too ironic, but a religious leader.
Opaka?
Yes.
It's unanimous then. Who's your annoyance?
Mine is the other dude, Zlenko.
Yep.
I did not care for him at all.
Same.
Again, unanimous.
I'll be right back.
I think Shella was relatively straightforward and upfront, whereas that guy wasn't being relatively straightforward and upfront. So he was just playing him. Who are you going to have a drink with?
The Kai. We love the Kai.
Yeah. So. How can you not? I'm sad. I'm really sad that this is the end of her journey. Like I said, I think she should have got more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that sense, we talk about plot armor and character armor and all that, but at least this one they followed through. But unfortunately, she's a character I'd love to see come back. I know she does, but she doesn't.
Yeah, version of her, not this version. I wonder if they knew in season 1 that they were going to have characters that reoccurred in 30 episodes, if they might have used her a bit more before writing her off.
Yeah.
My guess is they already had this idea for this Vedics and the politics, and they really wanted to get into it because it seemed juicy. That's my guess. Yeah. And that makes sense, but give her a few more. At least wait till the end of season 1 to kill her off.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's the answer.
I mean, Kira's the other strong contender.
That's what popped into my head, but
but I'm going with Opaka ultimately. Kira's Kira's gone through a lot.
There'll be other chances.
So many other chances. I'm definitely going to have drinks with her when she's pregnant. Because, she can drink so well. Ranking the episode, I think we all seem to like this pretty well, so I'm going to start towards the top. Better, worse than Emissary?
Worse.
Fair.
Yeah.
Below that is the Negus.
I would say worse than Negus.
Agreed.
Fair enough.
Below that is the Passenger.
I actually like that one more.
That's an interesting story, but the Opaka and Kira stuff, I think, pushed this up for me, so I would put it above Passenger. The main plot of the warring tribes would not have been enough to get it above Passenger. The Apaka Kira stuff is what gets it.
Yeah, all that stuff's familiar, and a lot of the stuff I thought in the Passenger was too, even though there was some good stuff in there too. So yeah, I'd go above as well.
Okay, so we're gonna put it in third place of 12 so far.
Oh, wow.
Let's see how far Keith will go down. Keith, below Passenger is Babel.
I don't remember the details well enough. I mean, I feel like I might go below that too.
Below that's Dax.
Ooh. Now it's about right range. That'll be tough. Yeah, above Dax, I suppose.
Okay, so Keith will go down two more spots, but yeah, I wouldn't expect this to rank so high. It's because of those continuity things, and it's our first real taste of serial Star Trek in a way. I feel it's just a tiny taste, but it's a taste.
Yeah, it's like Captain Crunch, you know.
I knew you were gonna get there.
Yes.
So next week, back to the Enterprise D for Frame of Mind. Riker begins to question reality when he finds himself in an alien insane asylum, facing the prospect of his life on the Enterprise has been a delusion. And he's unconscious and doing lots of flashbacks. No, I'm kidding. It's not Shades of Grey Part 2. That would be awful.
No, I'm going to say in fairness to him in this point. I mean, if I found myself in an alien insane asylum, I'd probably question my sanity as well.
I feel like a lot of shows did this exact same story, but Next Gen might have done it first. I don't know.
Wasn't there one where where Riker thought he was in a place like
a prisoner and they were tricking him?
Yeah,
but this one he thinks the whole Enterprise has been a delusion this whole time.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
Until then, live long.
Really long. Like, you can't die if you stay there and prosper.
And as long as you stay there.
As long as you stay there.
And our paths will cross again.
As long as you stay there.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?